I have made some changes to my system that I thought I would just provide a real quick update on as I'm going through this. I just took out the larger flash chips I've been using, which are these SST39SF040s, and have put in its place the 20s. So I've taken out the 40s and put in the 20s. And if I come down and look at that, basically what I'm going from is a 4 megabit or half a megabyte down to a 2 megabit or a quarter megabyte. And really, if I look at my address space, I'm saying my first half megabyte is RAM, and then my next half megabyte is ROM. This 4 megabit version really, by the time I use a pair of those, that's a full megabyte. And so I was wasting the first half of it. So going down to the 2 megabit, if I take a pair of those, that is a quarter megabyte plus a quarter megabyte. That's a half megabyte. The chips are physically the same. The only difference is this smaller one doesn't actually read the highest address line that these others would have read. But I've left the address line there. I don't think I'll have any problems with that. And the benefit to this is when I go to program it, it's going to program twice as fast because it has half as much that it has to write. So these are out. Then I also went and updated my code real quickly. The assembly, this is just the simple little test program I'm using. But I took out this initial code that fills the first half of the ROM with zeros because I don't need to do that anymore because I'm going to use the full pair of quarter megabyte ROMs. So I took that out and I also updated these addresses where I fill in NOPs up to my reset vector location, and then also how far it fills up the ROM. So this is going to fill up to a total of half a megabyte instead of 1 megabyte. Okay, so I got all that done, and now let me just jump over to the logger for a minute, and that's my Arduino logger, and pull that monitor up. So I've got the monitor running, and you can see if you look at the board real quickly, I've cleaned up the whole mess of wiring that I had on it. So all of the temporary lines that I had running up to the Arduino, I've gone through and actually used the same style of Cat5 cabling. And those I've then gone into these little adapters again that I had. I've been cutting these into little pieces, putting in pins and soldering those wires in. So they've got just a nice connection into the breadboard, even though they're a 24, 26, 27 gauge type of wire. So that's working well, and I've got those all tidied up pretty well and tied up. So right now my wiring I'm happy with what I've got right now. I'm sure it could be improved, especially this part down here, but this is all pretty solid, and I think I'll be okay with what's there. And all this other stuff where I'm using these soldered type of connections are really solid, so I have no concerns whatsoever there. So I've got the code updated on these smaller ROMs, and I'm going to go ahead and turn the system on. And you'll see it go through its internal reset cycle, and I got this going a little bit faster, but then it gets to my FFFF0. Again, then the goal is to jump to this 80000, which it's doing. And then eventually on my bar graphs, I want to see the 0Fs being flashed up as it's doing an out, an IO write with that 0F, 0F. And so that's working great. And you can see it's rotating through my 8000 addresses. So there's the 8000, 246, 8A, etc. And so my code is working at this point. So this is a really good spot. I am quite happy with the progress to have gotten to this point. And now that I've gotten my ROMs, the right size ROMs put in, I'm not going to bother changing to smaller RAMs. So I do have double the RAM I'm actually using. I'm only effectively using half of what's in here. But to find RAM chips that are half the size, they're just really hard to find. So I'm just using the larger RAM and wasting half of it because it's more accessible for me to find on the market and less expensive. That's about it. So I think what I'm going to start working on next, I did get the updated hat in, this updated hat for the processor. So I might mess around with that in the coming week and see if I can get that. As a reminder, that's a lot of surface mount, so I might go through that process of just building out the updated hat and see if those LEDs work on that. Not sure if I even need them at this point, quite honestly. It's got some extra debug ones, but we'll see. I'm going to go through it anyways just for the exercise of practicing my surface mount and to see if that version of the PCB turned out properly. But these here are actually working out really well. They're just kind of in the center, easy to read. So we'll see. I'll put both on for a while and see which ones I stick with. And then I'm going to get into this LCD next. So I'm going to try to get this PPI connected in. It needs some addressing to work with it, and of course data lines. And those addresses I'm going to probably pull from down here and probably pull the data lines. So I'll pull the addresses and data lines from here. And maybe, yeah, I think that's what I'll do. Now, I might actually connect up both PPIs at the same time because I can run the same address and data lines to both of these. And then I just won't hook up these chips, which are for a PS2 keyboard input quite yet. I'll come back to that, but I'll get the PPIs hooked up and then see if I can properly program the PPI in assembly to get Hello World or something on that LCD. So that is next up. I think that's all I've got for now. If anybody has questions on anything I have done up to this point, if I've skipped any details you're interested in, let me know. Or if you've got suggestions on how to improve what I've got so far, do please let me know. I will on my blog, which a link down to the specific post will be in the comments of this video, but I will put in a better picture of this system at the moment. I will put a PDF version of the current schematic I'm using. And if there's other things that you guys want to see me post there, just let me know. But I'll get this posted there in case you want to dig through that schematic a little bit.